June, 1615. Outside Osaka Castle, the largest army Japan has ever assembled is closing in for the kill. And one man in crimson armor is about to do the unthinkable. His soldiers smash through rank after rank of Tokugawa troops, and drive straight into the headquarters of the most powerful man in Japan. The shogun's bodyguards scatter. His golden standard crashes to the ground. For one impossible moment, the future of Japan hangs by a thread. This is the story of Sanada Yukimura, the samurai who came closer than anyone to killing the man whose dynasty would rule Japan for the next 260 years. This is the file on Sanada Yukimura. To understand why this one man terrified the Tokugawa, you have to go back 30 years, to a small mountain domain that should never have mattered. Shinano Province. Cold. Mountainous. Poor. Home to the Sanada, a minor clan with a modest castle called Ueda, and a reputation that was anything but minor. Their crest was 6 copper coins. In Japanese Buddhist belief, 6 coins were the fare a dead soul paid to cross the river into the afterlife. The Sanada wore the price of death on their banners. The message was simple: we are already prepared to die. Yukimura was born into this family in 1567 under his real name, Nobushige. And that name is the first thing the legends get wrong. But we will come back to that. Because before Yukimura ever drew a sword in a major battle, his father had already made the Sanada famous by doing something almost nobody in Japan dared to do. He beat the Tokugawa. Twice. 1585, the First Battle of Ueda. A dispute over territory brings roughly 7,000 Tokugawa troops to the gates of Ueda Castle. Masayuki, Yukimura's father, and one of the most cunning defensive minds in samurai history, has barely 2,000 men. He lets the attackers push deep into the castle town. Then he springs the trap. Ambushes from the side streets. A river crossing turned into a killing ground. Counterattacks from positions the Tokugawa did not know existed. By the end of the day, well over 1,000 Tokugawa soldiers are dead. Sanada losses, according to tradition, around 40. 15 years later, Masayuki does it again, at the worst possible moment for the Tokugawa. In the year 1600, Tokugawa Ieyasu marches to fight the battle that will decide who rules Japan. His son Hidetada leads 38,000 men along the mountain road, and makes the mistake of stopping at Ueda Castle. Masayuki and Yukimura hold him there with fewer than 3,000 men. Day after day after day. Hidetada finally gives up, abandons the siege, and races to join his father. He arrives too late. The battle is already over. 38,000 soldiers, a huge part of the Tokugawa war machine, never fired a shot in the fight that decided Japan. Because of one stubborn family in the mountains. That fight was Sekigahara. October, 1600. The largest field battle in samurai history. Japan had split in two. In the east, the armies behind Tokugawa Ieyasu. In the west, a coalition fighting in the name of the Toyotomi, the family of the late ruler Hideyoshi. And the Sanada did something remarkable. They split too. On purpose. Yukimura's older brother joined the east. Yukimura and his father joined the west. Whichever side won, the Sanada name would survive. It was cold. It was brilliant. It was very Sanada. But it came at a price. The Western coalition collapsed in a single afternoon at Sekigahara. Ieyasu was now the master of Japan, and Masayuki and Yukimura had backed the losing side. They expected to be executed. Instead, thanks to the brother who had chosen the east, they received something arguably crueler. Erasure. Kudoyama. A remote mountain village in the shadow of the sacred temples of Mount Koya. This is where Yukimura was sent to disappear. No army. No castle. No future. He was 33 years old. For 14 years, the man who had helped humiliate the Tokugawa twice lived as a ghost. He raised his children. He grew old. His letters from these years survive, and they are heartbreakingly ordinary. He asks relatives to send money. He asks for sake. He complains that his teeth are falling out and his hair has turned white. In 1611, his father Masayuki died in exile, still waiting for a war that never came. The Tokugawa had won. Japan was at peace. The age of the samurai battlefield was ending, and history was perfectly content to forget Sanada Yukimura. Then, in the autumn of 1614, a messenger climbed the mountain with an offer. The Toyotomi, the clan Ieyasu had pushed aside, still held the greatest fortress in Japan. And they were calling in warriors for one last war. Yukimura slipped past his guards and walked down the mountain, toward Osaka. What he found there was desperate. Osaka Castle. The widest moats and the highest stone walls in Japan, held by roughly 55,000 defenders. Most of them were ronin, masterless samurai, men the Tokugawa peace had left behind with nothing to lose. Marching toward them came the Tokugawa, with an army of nearly 200,000. No reinforcements were coming. Every other lord in Japan had already chosen the Shogun side. The Toyotomi commanders argued for staying behind the walls and waiting out a siege. Yukimura argued for attack, and he was overruled. So he asked for the one assignment nobody else wanted, the castle's weakest point. The southern approach. Where the moats were shallow and the ground was flat and open. And there, he built something the Tokugawa had never seen. He called it the Sanada Maru. A fortress outside the fortress, a dead-end killing ground of earthworks, palisades, and gun towers, flying blood-red banners marked with 6 coins. In the winter of 1614, Tokugawa forces attacked it head-on. It was a slaughter. Musket crossfire from 3 sides cut down wave after wave of attackers. Thousands of Tokugawa soldiers fell. The Sanada Maru never came close to falling. Ieyasu, now in his 70s, and far too smart to keep feeding men into that meat grinder, changed weapons. From soldiers to diplomacy. A peace treaty was signed. And buried inside it, one quiet clause: the outer moats would be filled in. The Sanada Maru would be torn down. The fangs were pulled. Within months, the truce collapsed, and this time, Osaka stood naked. June 3, 1615. The Battle of Tennoji. The last great samurai battle in Japanese history. Yukimura was now 48 years old. His hair, by his own account, had long since turned white. He commanded a force of several thousand men, armored in crimson, and he knew exactly how this day would end. According to tradition, his order was simple. There is only one target on this field, the head of Tokugawa Ieyasu. The red unit charged. What happened in the next hour made Yukimura immortal. The Sanada smashed through the Tokugawa lines, one rank, then another. Then another, driving like a spear straight at Ieyasu's command post. The elite bodyguard of the most powerful man in Japan broke and ran. Ieyasu's golden standard toppled, something that had happened only once before in his 50 years of war. Later chronicles claim the 73-year-old Ieyasu, caught in the panic, spoke of taking his own life rather than be captured. So, how close did the spear really come? Honestly, we do not know. The most dramatic details come from accounts written years later, when the legend was already growing. But this much is solid: one exhausted commander, with a few thousand ronin, threw the headquarters of an army of 150,000 into chaos, 3 separate times that afternoon. 3 times the red wave crashed forward. 3 times the Tokugawa lines bent. They did not break. By mid-afternoon, the Sanada were spent. Yukimura, wounded and exhausted, was resting near a shrine when a Tokugawa samurai found him. According to the records of the man who took his head, Yukimura did not run and did not fight. He simply identified himself and said, "Take my head as your trophy." When the news spread, the most famous verdict on him did not come from his friends or his enemies. It came from the Shimazu clan, hard-bitten warriors from the far south, watching from the outside. Their report says, simply, Sanada is the #1 warrior in Japan. Even the tales of old have nothing like him. And one more thing. The name Yukimura, the name on the statues, the games, and the movies, appears in none of his own letters. He signed his name Nobushige to the end of his life. Yukimura was born in the storybooks of the peaceful centuries that followed, as Japan slowly turned the man into the myth. The Tokugawa dynasty he charged at ruled for 260 years. Almost every other warrior who fought at Osaka was forgotten. But the loser in the crimson armor became the most beloved samurai in Japan. He lost the battle. But he won immortality. What made him truly remarkable was not how